All right, welcome back. We are COMP301 in the summer 2020 semester, and it's week 6, part 1 of our broadcast, and it's building an FTP server this day, and then we're going to meet on Thursday, and we're going to do some web server on Thursday. Okay. So let's talk about this again. Linux operating systems. This week is a funny week. We have July 1st holiday on a Wednesday. It won't affect you guys. It does affect some of the other classes, but we're going to meet twice this week. You're one of those classes that I have that do meet twice. Some of the other sections that I have only meet once. Okay, so now I've got some questions. One of them was, hey, how does that Nslookup tool work? I'm going to ignore this, of course, not now. How does that Nslookup tool work? And how do I get IP addresses and blah, blah. So let's take a look at Nslookup. So man, Nslookup, and then it says Nslookup query internet name servers interactively. Cool, right? And it says it's programmed to query internet service. Nslookup has two modes, interactive and non-interactive. Interactive mode allows the user to query name servers for information, blah, blah, blah. Okay? And let's take a look at what it looks like. So Nslookup dash query is equal to hinfo with some kind of timeout. All right? And it says we want to get the host, which is the server, and so on. There's a lot of stuff we can do here. Okay, so oh, by the way, notice all this other stuff like not implemented. This is interesting that they have this stuff. So there's a lot of, obviously, a ton of little subcommands that you can do with Nslookup, right? But let's just try something like Nslookup and then, some kind of host name. So Nslookup, and we want to look at, I don't know, google.com or google.ca. So it tells us we got back a IP address of 192.168.2.1, and that is my server, and it says hashtag 53. That's interesting. That's the address, right? So what do you think these things mean? This is the server, and then this what this says. What server is this? Does anyone have an idea of what we're looking at, and what do you think? So I'm looking at the chat now for you guys. I want to get an idea of what you think, this thing is. Okay, it's IP address. It's for which host though? Which host IP address is this? So this is the IP address that I have. There's two. There's things up here, and then there's some other answer down here. And by the way, we get a couple of answers here, right? So here, this one is actually my gateway. This is me. This is my server at home. My server at hum you can access by 192.168 is a local IP address, right? In this subdomain, 192.168 whatever. Whenever I see this, that means that it's at your house somewhere, all right? Typically, and then this is the subnet mask 2.1. So obviously my subnet inside my house for my particular server, what goes through Bell, goes from 2.1 to 2.255, right? And by chance, this is the IP address. It says 53 is this address. And if I do an if config, remember we did an if config? What if config does? It looks through and it says, okay, here's my address, 192.168.2.60 on the subnet mask 255.255.255.0, which means I ignore the first three octets, this one, and this one, and all I care about is this last octet. That's what that 255 means, right? So it blanks out, it's a filter. That's what it's a mask. It filters out all the first three octets, and the only thing we care about is the last one. Okay, the last one is the actual address range. Now, if I had both of these zeros, then I can have a much larger address range. And some domains, especially in a large domain like a university or a college, you have these two blanked out, which means it's many, many, many domains, and you can create more of them, even after that. Okay, so and normally what happens is we have a subdomain for both the wire and wireless LAN. Yeah, they're totally different domains. So if you have a computer and you're trying to connect to like a Wi-Fi and you're trying to communicate between these two servers, a server that's on your laptop, and then some kind of computer that's on the in the network, they won't connect because usually they're on different domains in most schools. Anyways, so this is our local IP address right here. This is .60 as an example. All right. So that's one, and also my Windows machine. Okay, let's take a look at that one. So, and if I do like ipconfig, which is equivalent to ifconfig equivalent, I have this. I have 192.168.253. Look at that, 53. Okay, that's interesting, and that's what I got when I did this. I said 192.168.2.1 going through 53. That's going through my little Windows host, right? And across the network, google.ca, to find that this is the IP address for Google. So remember what we can do. What is finger, right? Finger says, hey, here's who I am. Tom is on, or whatever, right? And what about who is? Remember who is? Who is by itself? It says usage, J who is, options, and the port as an example, and blah blah blah. Who is, that's another thing we can use. And if I was to man page that one, man who is, or J who is, which is the equivalent, it says client for the who is service. J who is searches who is servers for the object in the command line. The host to query is taken from a global configuration file, and so on. So if I say who is, and if I do like google.ca, is that possible? Can I do that? And you can. It actually goes and looks at who owns google.ca. So it says, okay, so I'm going here, and it looks at our configuration. If I make this larger, you can see it says this is the domain status, delete prohibited, so they want you not to transfer it. Here's the street, 1600 Amphitheater Parkway, Mountain View, California, and the postal code 94043, or the zip code in this case, right? The contact number for the provider, as well as the DNS, right? And this is an example of looking at a domain and getting back some information from them right through the who is server. So who is really powerful too. Let's try that again. So if I do who is, and if I like centennialcollege.ca, right? If I did this, then as we did before, if I scroll up a little bit, we're going to get some information. So again, we're going to see who the registrant is, Centennial College, where it is, 941 Progress, as an example. What's the postal code? What's the contact number? 416-289-5000. These are all things we know, right? Who is the admin for Centennial? We can send an email to the administrator, and so on. So that's what this does. So who is very powerful. But who is combined with Nslookup. So if I did a clear Nslookup of Centennial College .ca, then you're going to see that I'm going to go tunnel through. Take a look. I'm tunneling through my gateway, through my host. This is where I am. And then I'm going to go through my host to Centennial College .ca. I'm going to get this. One of these addresses is correct. The 206. These are the two domain DNS addresses. The domain name server. There's two of them for Centennial College. This one and this one. Those are the two domain name servers. Right, 206 and 207. All right. Why does it say 60 and not 61? Never mind. Okay, good. Makes sense. So that's what Nslookup does. Nslookup has a lot of other functions. So if I go like to Linux, and this is part of you doing it on your own, but you're asking, so I'm helping. Linux, and if I go Nslookup command, right, and if you look at it, I'm just going for the first link, guys. I'm not even like trying hard here, okay? It literally does this. It tells you where it is. Take a look, right? And then it goes through 53. It looks like that was my address, but maybe not. And then it tells you the set type is MX. So here's the IP. To find the IP address of a host, simply type the host name. To perform a reverse DNS lookup, enter the IP address of a host. So the other way around. So if I go, let's look up, 198.57. Whatever, right? And here we're looking at linux-bible.com. If I did it the other way around, so let's go back and do it the other way around. So if I want to do the reverse lookup, I can enter the IP address. So nslookup, and if I did 199.212.27.206 and press enter, it's going to go, okay, cool. Guess what? That looks like Centennial College. See? It actually gives you a clickable link, right? And that's what it looks like there. That's how it goes. So that's the reverse lookup. You have the IP address, you can see where it's coming from. Okay? And what about if I wanted to find my own IP address, like me, myself? You can do the same thing. If you're smart enough, then you can go look up your external IP for your particular router. I'm not going to do that here because I don't want to get hacked, right? But you can look up your external IP address, and once you look up your external IP address, right, it'll actually point down through into, let's say, your provider, whoever the provider is. They're the people that own the IP address, not you, right? But actually it can show you who is the provider, and you can get that anytime, anywhere, if you really want to. Okay, cool. So that is this. So you can see that's how Nslookup works, and they have some additional things here. So this is non-interactive mode, right? And then there is interactive mode. So it says non-interactive mode is invoked by typing the nslookup command followed by the name of the IP address or whatever. For example, whatever it is. Interactive mode is entered by typing the nslookup command without any arguments. So I don't type it in, and then I can start adding stuff in. Let's try and type this in, and this might answer your question, Sion. All right. So if I start typing in nslookup, and then it's interactive mode now. It's waiting for me to add stuff in, right? So I could type in the name on the second line, just like we did before. So I can say like google.ca, right? And I can type in centennialcollege.ca, right? And you can get both those two things. So now think about this when I'm asking in the question. I'm saying, hey, get these things, right? Nslookup doesn't work on Windows. Git bash, for some reason, it says no response. Well, again, remember what is git bash real? Does it have all the commands that we do on here? No, it doesn't, right? So remember, it's not really Linux, right? So it's missing some parts. So you're thinking if I go to my command prompt here and go nslookup, so if I go clear, and then I say something like, google.ca, like this. I mean, it works for me, right? But that's me in PowerShell. I'm using PowerShell, so that's why this is working for me. But for you, it might not work because it really depends on how your system is set up, right? So this is server my network. Like you can see that's the network that I'm looking at, 192.168.2.1. And if I did the same thing for Centennial College, this is on Windows. Right, you can see again, you're going to get this thing. And if I did the other way around, nslookup, and I did the other way, 199.212.27.206, then again, it's going to show me that is Centennial College when I look at an IP address. Okay, so that is kind of the way that works. So that's how you do it. Now, what the question asked, Seung, was like, hey, write a bash script named Q1 that takes a list of domain names and displays their IP addresses. Okay, I'm making a list of domain names. So I'm reading a list of domain names, reading it in, and getting each of the IP addresses. I'm going to print out all those IP addresses. So how do I make a script like that? How do I read a bunch of IP addresses? How do I filter through a bunch of IP addresses by doing an nslookup, right? And all I care about is one part of the response. And the nslookup, I'll be honest with you, that question is probably the hardest thing you have to do in assignment 2. Okay, which isn't that hard, but you have to think about ways of doing it. Okay, so can you please explain Q1F .sh. Okay, some people are asking for assignment help now. We'll do that, but I want to do this other stuff too. So let's get to that. So I'm just going to bring up my documentation on this, and I'll explain it. I won't answer everything. You have to do some of it yourself, obviously, but I'll try and guide you as best as possible to finish the assignment. All right, so Q1F is what you asked for, right? Q1F.sh, this one. Okay. Write a bash script named Q1F that will edit the path environment variable to include source files directory in your home directory and make the new variable global. Okay. So that means, source files. Did we ever say I want you to make a source files folder yet? No. Which means you have to make a folder, a source files directory in your home directory. So remember, if I want to go and find a source files folder, so let's quit first. Let's go to this. So if I want to do cd/home, right? If I go to Tom, that's me, this is my home folder. Or you can go to this, right? That's my home folder. Now, do you notice that there's any source files in here at all? By default, no, there isn't. So I'd have to make I'm going to do everything for you, but I'm going to make a source files directory, right? There's the source files directory, and anything that's inside source files, it says, is added to the path. All right, so that's what you have to do. I've already explained how to do adding to the path in another video, so you guys have to look that up. I'm not going to give you the answer here, but that's how you would do it. Okay. Any other questions around assignment 2 before I move on? Because I have to get this other stuff done today. Okay. That's clear. So yeah, I want to add an FTP server. So again, things we're doing today. What are we doing today? I don't really have a PowerPoint for this. But I want to do a couple things, as an example. So I think what I'd like to do is, we've already run things with root privileges before. We know what sudo does and what su does. So there's two ways to get root privileges. If I go su, right, that gives me root privileges. It should give me root privileges. If I type things properly. I don't know if I typed okay, let's try sudo. Oh yeah. Sudo, let's say ls-al. Right? So that's kind of the default, right? So su or sudo, just kind of the same thing. I just don't remember the other password. And then what we're going to do this week is today we're going to talk about how to install a little FTP server. That's what we're going to do, and on a system. And then next day we'll install Nginx, which is a little web server, and we'll make it all work. Okay, so kind of advanced administration kind of thing. I want to add something to it. I want to modify Linux. All right. So the default FTP server we're going to use is Sftp. All right, so where is that? Let me get that for you. So if I type in Ftp, all right, for Fedora. So again, Liquid Web gives us a guide on how to install Ftp, but let's just put in Ftp in general. We don't have to use a guide for this, right? It's pretty simple. So there we go. Ftp is secure, fast, probably the most secure and fastest FTP server on Unix-like systems, it says, right? And you can see that it's been around for a while, and it's a little old. It's not like something that's like really new, right? So it's an older project that we can make work on OpenSUSE and as well as Fedora and Red Hat Linux. Okay, so that's kind of the way to go with this one. So Ftp, right? All right, so how do we install this thing and what do we do? Well, we've used sudo commands in the past. So literally we just type in something like, okay, I want to do a sudo right? DNF. So I want to use the package manager for Fedora Linux. Install. And I could use the -y option. -y, what it says is install and just say yes to everything. We're not going to do that. We're just going to use vs-ftpd. ftpd is the actual service. Whenever I see a D on the end, I always think he has a daemon or some kind of service that runs in the background. Okay, it's called a daemon. So I run it. It's going to ask me to confirm. Right? And that's where the yes comes in. If I had typed the -y, I wouldn't have to put this in. It would just happen automatically. So yes, goes through, and then it goes through and installs the different details. All right, so that's the first thing. So now I've downloaded vs-ftp. Okay, that's what the first thing I do. The next part is let's see what I can see inside of the configuration. So typically what happens is inside of the ECT folder, so a lot of the stuff is in here, etc. So you see there's a lot of stuff. Notice I didn't do an ls-al because there's a lot of things in here. One of them, the thing that I'm going to get you guys to do on Thursday is Nginx. I've already installed it here. I'm going to try a separate version of Fedora to show you how to install Nginx, and then we'll use this one again. So I'll kind of flip back and forth between the two VMs, right? Because I've kind of done a test of how this works, okay? But notice that it's already in the right spot. vs-ftpd is right here. This is where it is. etc is almost like your control folder, if you will. And if I go in there, okay, and I look there, you can see that I have a vs-ftp.conf file, config file. That's the config file for this. And if I go cat vs-ftpd.conf, and if I do sudo, I want to look at it, sudo vs-ftpd, sudo cat. Anything I do in here is kind of administrative, right? So it goes through and it shows me a big file, right? It says, okay, cool, you want this. Here we are. It says this is the default. Allow anonymous FTP. Beware, anonymous enable is no. It says if we this is notice there's a hashtag here, and this one is no hashtag, which means this is actually the command to configure the vs-ftp, right? All right, local enable yes. What local enable yes does is it allows local users to use the FTP service. That's what this does. All right. Write enable yes, so it allows me to write to the FTP server. Okay, local umask 022. Again, it's port 22, right? And we keep going down here. Directory message enable yes, right? And a bunch of other default features, if you will. Okay. So again, do we want to make it? We want to make anonymous enable yes. I'm not sure that that's really a good thing. We can also we want to add the FTP port. The next part is once we've done this, we want to kind of enable the FTP port in the firewall. So remember that if I do sudo, and I want to look at the firewall, we're going to have to do this on Thursday as well. Firewall command, right? If I was to look at this, it's going to say, I don't know what the firewall command is. So let's go man firewall dash command. So the firewall command is actually something that controls our firewall. One thing I can do is I can reload the firewall, right? I can add a service to the firewall, right? So if you scroll down here, there's I can also make it permanent, so it's not just a one-time deal, it's forever, right? I definitely want to do this if I'm going to use my FTP server. I want to set up a permanent firewall exception. That's what I want to do, right? I can set the default zone if I want to, and so on, okay? So these are all the different kinds of commands, and you can see that it's quite extensive because we're dealing with a firewall here, Okay, so these are the commands you need to know. So again, it's going to be sudo firewall dash command, and what I want to do is I want to add a service, right? And I want to, and the service is equal to FTP, right? And I want to make this service permanent. Okay. Success. You should get that too. So sudo firewall command, add a service, FTP, permanent. And what this does, it modifies the firewall configuration file, the firewall.confd, and then it does that, right? The next thing you want to do is you want to reload the firewall, because right now the firewall is down, it's closed. We want to open it up, so we can say sudo firewall command, right, as an example, and then -- reload. And then success, we're good to go. Okay, so that's the first part. And then the next part is we need to enable, right, the system control. So system control, so man system control, system CT, right? It's almost like the control panel equivalent, right? No manual for system control. System control, maybe with an L. How about that, Tom? There we go. Control the system D, system daemon. So think about this as a background process that runs your process, and service manager. All right. So that's what this does. System control, and you specify the service that you want to bring up or take down, as an example. And I'm just going to show you some stuff here. So that basically says I want this to be stop, reload, restart. These are different keywords that you can use for any of the services. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to enable something, right? So what I can do is I can say sudo system control. That's what that is. Enable is the keyword, and then the name of the service that I just downloaded was vsftpd, right? Is the one I want to use, right? It's going to go through it. It's going to create a symlink for it, and now the service has been enabled. But now we need to restart it because we've made it. We need to restart the service. So we're going to say sudo systemctl, and then we're going to say that we're going to reload or restart the vsftpd service. And how about I type it properly? vsftpd. Done, right? So now, how do I know it works? Well, let's download Filezilla on my actual machine, my Windows machine for a second. So Filezilla is the way I would do it, not Fedora, Filezilla Windows. So here, if you go to Filezilla, this is the one I use for connecting. It's a free FTP client. That's what it is. So let's download the Filezilla client. It says all platforms are Windows only. Windows only is okay. This is the Filezilla server. No. Filezilla client. This one, Filezilla client. Okay. See different platforms that are compatible with it. Cool. Which one do I want? It says please select your edition of Filezilla client. Do I want Filezilla Pro? No. It's unnecessary to do this. You really only need Filezilla. If you want to get the manual, it's free. You can certainly do that. I'm going to click just download. A lot of the commands you can find are online. So you notice it says sponsored setup. Okay, be careful about this because once you do the sponsored setup, it's going to try and install extra stuff. We don't want to install extra stuff, right? So save. It's 9.6 megs. And let me just put this download path on your here. Centennial. So Filezilla. Okay, so you have it. Here's Filezilla. Let's install it. Okay. Access control. I agree. Now look, please read what it says here, okay? It says Filezilla client, and it tells you the control. I agree with this, with the terms of the Filezilla client. Agree. Okay. Loading data. Now be careful whenever you have an installer like this. Sometimes, especially when it's free, sometimes they add a bunch of different programs for you to load and try. Be careful of what it says. Okay. Next, please select whether you wish to make the software available to all users or just yourself. I definitely want to make this all users. What is this doing? It's changing my environment variable path for me. If I just did this, it would just be me. This is the system path. So next. Okay, it says I want the client, icon sets, the language files, the shell extension, that's pretty cool, and the desktop icon. Definitely want the desktop icon. And click next. It tells me what the install path is, and click next. And click next. And now it says, do you want to install a vast free antivirus? No. Decline. Please don't do that. It's going to mess up. You know, sometimes I think the antivirus programs out there are viruses, malware, you know, or bloatware, whatever you want to call them. So I know, I'm sorry for people who are watching this. I don't mean to say that, but I just try not to install stuff like that. Okay, so start Filezilla now. Let's do it. Okay. And it says here is the free open source solution and how to get help and the documentation and basic usage. Yay. Awesome. Press OK. Host, username, password, port. Okay, pretty simple stuff for your client. If you haven't used this before, this is how I would do it. And let's go to this. Now remember, we have a configuration. We know this is port 60. If you did if config tells us that here, right, by default, our port number is 60. So we'll grab this port, copy, and if you can remember it, put it in it. So I want to put the port in there. So 192.168.2.60. Username, we know my username, and put the password in for the username. That usually what happens is it's protected, so you're not going to get a issue. Okay, I'm not going to put the port. Okay, but notice it says Sftp is 22 and the FTP port is 21. If I just click connect, right, it's going to say, okay, would you like FTP Filezilla to remember your password? When allowing Filezilla to remember passwords, you can reconnect without having to re-enter password for restarting Filezilla. Okay, I'm okay with that. If you don't like that or if you're uncomfortable with that, put no. All right, now it says this server does not support FTP over TLS. If you continue, your password and files will be sent and clear over the internet, 192.26.21. And then it says, I want to say always allow insecure FTP as an example, right? So if you click onto this, it'll just ignore my question. If not, you're going to send things over. For us, it's okay. For us, okay. And we're in. We're in. Look. Here's my files, desktop, documents. So what does this do? Well, it looks to see who the user is, that's me, and it puts me into my home directory. Look, dude, right? And my friends, I literally can drop files from here now into my Linux server. It's that simple. Sorry, I don't want to quote, our Apple friends, right? But yeah, typically you wouldn't say that would be bad. If you put clear, then you're going to show your password. For us right now, we're good, and we're going to talk about how to fix this problem in a second. All right, but take a look, right? I mean, we have some files over here. I want to put some files over here. So let's suppose I want to dump some files. So here I am, and let's use SSH at the same time. So I want to SSH from my Windows machine over to this machine. Let's try that out. So if you have your command prompt set up properly, you should be able to do this. SSH 192.168.2.60. It's going to say Tom at, right, or whatever. And by the way, you could also SSH with user ID. Put my password in, and you can see now that I have direct access to Linux, right? So I'm on Windows, accessing my Linux command, and here what I can do is I can look at my desktop and I can look at downloads. Let's say, and I have nothing in my downloads. Let's put something in downloads. As an example, I can shift something in there. Let's say a PDF document or something that I want. So I have the PDF for assignment 2. I'll put that on my desktop. Here's my PDF for assignment 2, right? And what I want to do is on the left-hand side, that is us, local, on the left-hand side. That's Windows, right? And I can do is I can look at things like my desktop or whatever I want to look at. So Tom, and then I want to look at my desktop. And you can see that on my desktop, I can scroll down. So here is actually the files. This is the folder, file name. Here's my assignment 2. And I'm going to push this into Tom. And I want to go into the downloads folder in here. So I can go in there, right? And this is where I want to put this assignment 2. I literally have to just drag and drop it on like this. And it's a done. It transferred from my Windows machine to my Linux machine. And if I look at this now, so let's look at it from the Windows side. If I didn't have access to the Linux machine, I'd have to do this, right? I'd have to go ls, and you can see now that I have my assignment2.pdf right here. Okay. So now I'm on this side, and let's see it. So I go to home, and here's my document here. So let's go to downloads, right? And you can see now I have my assignment2.pdf on this side. So again, I like Filezilla. I think it's pretty straightforward. I use this for a lot of my web stuff. Anytime I do any web things, I connect. If I need to connect to something, even Microsoft or whatever, I use Filezilla. Let's disconnect. So the way to work is I can cancel the operation. I can it's going to be disconnected. See how it disconnected? It timed out, so I'm disconnected. If I try port 22 instead, so let's say port 22 and connect, right? It says, okay, Filezilla is already connected to a server. Establish a new connection in the new tab, or abort previous connection and connect to the current tab. Let's try this. Abort previous and try, and says, okay, now the server's host key is unknown. You have no guarantee that the server is the computer you think it is. Host is 192.168.2.60 on port 22. Host key algorithm is SSH. This is pretty good. Here's my fingerprint and so on. And always trust this host. Add this key to the cache. I mean, I know this is my server, so I would do this. If I got this warning and I didn't know the host, yeah, no. But now I always know. I want to remember, so I'm going to press OK. And yay, guess what? We don't get that weird message that says your password is clear text. You're not, and then I'm still okay, right? So just out of the box, you know, VS FTPD has secure connection, it's fast, and it's simple, and it connects to any client like Filezilla. I literally set this up in like what, 5 minutes, right? And I got a little FTP. FTP, guys, is like the #1 application next to a web server. Like, it's really, really simple. And once I have my FTP site working, I can use this as a file server. I can use it as all kinds of stuff. I can drag and drop stuff from one system to the other, whether I'm here locally or even far, far away. Okay? Great tools. No problem. Questions around FTP and how to make an FTP server. Very simple one, right? And what the commands mean. So again, just a recap of the commands. By the way, one thing I wanted to mention today, because it's a short week. One thing I'm not going to do this week is I'm not going to give you a quiz. So no quiz this week. You have assignment, the new assignment that you're working on. And I want to give you a chance to focus on that stuff and not worry. I'll give you a quiz, a larger quiz or something that's worth a little bit more another week. Okay, so don't worry about that. We'll make it up in some other quiz. I'm not going to give you a new quiz this week. Okay, just letting you know. All right, are you with me? Were you able to do what I did and create a little server for yourself? I'm hoping the answer is yes. I know some people are saying, "Yay, no quiz." I agree. Sometimes too many quizzes are bad, right? You know, we don't want to kill it. I don't want to kill you anyway with too many quizzes. But how are we doing? Can I get a check mark for yes, I'm good, and an X for no, I'm not? I got some check marks. I got an X. So, Anirudh, tell me what the problem that you're having is. Anirudh? I missed some commands. Okay. So let's go back up. So the commands, remember, you can always go up a step. And I can go all the way to the beginning, right? So first thing I did was sudo dnf install vsftpd. First thing. And what this did, it goes up to the repo as an example and downloaded and installed vsftpd. First thing. Okay. By the way, this works the same for any administrative service that you want to set up. Okay. So anything like that, you go and install things through vsftpd. Next, after I did this and it did its job, it might ask me for a question. Remember, I could have put the -y option, but I didn't. I just wanted to actually accept it on my own. And then I went into the etc folder. In the etc folder, I looked at the vsftpd folder, and I did a cat vsftpd, which showed me the configuration files of the FTP server, which I didn't change. I just looked at them so we could see them together. Okay, I had to use the sudo command. And then I had to change the firewall command, sudo firewall, and I added a service, FTP, right? And then I made it permanent with the -- permanent switch. That's what this is. This is the option that I'm using. Switch option. Okay, so this is the way I set things up, right? So I did this, I added this in, and then after I did this, right, we did the reload command. And what reload command does is it reloads the firewall, and the firewall goes back up. So first I added an exception to the firewall, but the firewall isn't going to stop defending you, right? Because the default firewall that's built in has all the ports pretty much closed except for 443. I think in port 80, it's there, but it's not active, right? And then what we did was we did a enable. We used the system control. System control is one of those critical executable files that we would use to enable a service that runs in the background. And usually what we do is, again, a key is whenever we look at the D means daemon. All right, D means daemon, or a background service, a service that's running in the background. And we have a lot of those on Windows that keep running in the background when you load the service, right? So we enable the service, and once we enabled the service, then we restarted the service. We restarted it. So once the service was restarted, and by the way, I can do the same thing now. If I say sudo restart the service, it's going to ask me for my password. And sometimes when I make a change to the service, as an example, then, and of course I typed it wrong, it's going to have to be vsftpd, right? Then it restarts the service in the background. It doesn't give me a success or failure message, except for that last one. But what this does is basically it says enable, disable, disable, enable, right? And what that does when you enable, disable, or disable, enable, sorry, it stops the service and restarts the service. So if I wanted to stop the service, so say if I said system control stop vsftpd, done. Now if I try to connect to it with Filezilla, right? So I want to go on port 22 and I want to connect to the same service, and I click quick connect. It's going to say I'm going to abort the previous operation. It's going to try. It's going to keep trying, and it's successful, right? So let's stop the service because somehow that didn't work. Let's go and disable vsftpd. Removed. Okay, so the service is completely removed and stopped, right? And then I can stop the firewall. So I can go to the firewall command. Let's put it back in a second. So we'll say that the firewall command I want to reload. I can also, so it says add service, but I can also remove service from the firewall, right? So if I go to firewall, so again, sudo firewall command remove service equals to ftp -- permanent. And did I do it wrong? Firewall, unrecognized remove. I think it's remove, stop. Well, I can't remember how it was. Let's look that up again. Firewall command remove service. I think I did it right. It's been a while. Remove port, no. Firewall D cheat sheet. Okay, let's see if that's going to help us out. This is cool. Enable, start, stop. We want to remove a service. So command permanent remove port, remove dash port, add service. I did, oh, yeah. Maybe I just typed it wrong. Okay, let's try it again. Remove dash service. Unrecognized comment. Wait. Am I like seeing double here? So remove. So service, add service, remove dash service. What I did. So what I did. Oh, dash dash. Haha. La la la. Ba 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 ba. Dash dash remove. Success. So now it's gone. So I removed the service FTP. So now if I even try it with Filezilla, and if I go 20 on port 22, there's not even a firewall. Oh, I have to also, sorry, I have to reload the firewall. Sudo firewall command, and I think it's reload. Reload. La 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 la. I'm gonna go nuts. Reload. Restart. Try that again. Sudo restart dash dash restart. Reload. It's reload. Yeah. So it's sudo firewall dash command dash dash reload. Done. So now if I did this, so the firewall's back up, and if I go back to this and put port 22 in there, and I try it, it should stop me. Let's see if I can get in there. That's weird. Let's look at downloads. Oh, it's cached. Let's do one of these. And then load up. That's weird. That should have stopped me for sure, guys. Filezilla. All right, 192.168.2.60, 60, and my username and password, and I want to go to port 22. Quick connect. That should not have allowed me to connect. It should be down. So that's weird. Yeah, that should not be cool. That should not be allowed. Should not. How about 21? Is 21 blocked? Maybe Sftp is open still. Abort and go to that one. Yes. Yeah. So FTP is closed. This is it. So FTP is closed, but Sftp is open. So let's do that. So I want to remove Sftp permanent. Sftp not enabled. Let's shut down Sftp. So shut down port 22 firewall Fedora, because port 22 is the firewall that we want to shut down, right? So I think I can probably use the same cheat sheet for this one, which is here. I want to shut the firewall down on a port. Remove port is equal to port 22. Remove port. Remove service. I did remove service, but somehow reload. Let's do dual list all and see what we got. Might be a good idea. So yes, we'll do a firewall dash command dash dash list all, and we'll do a sudo firewall command. How about that? List dash all. Okay. Doesn't look like there's a lot open at all. ports 1025 to 65535 UDP, 1025 to 65535 TCP. Looks like it's open. That's not good. So let's remove port 22. So I think what I can do, we will remove port. And I believe that is TCP. Let's try that out. So sudo firewall command remove port dash port equals to 22. I don't want to make that permanent though. Slash TCP. Yes, slash TCP. Success. Not enabled. 22. Okay, what UDP? Success. Okay. Well, that means I should be able to stop myself from coming inbound now with port 22. Port 22. Oh, it's got a nice hole in my security. I'm able to go in and tunnel through with port 22. There could be also another service, guys. That's another thing that's happening. It might be another service that's running on my desktop, maybe from a UI perspective, that's keeping that open. But port 21 definitely shut down. Like if I tried port 21 to do it, so if I do port 21 and quick connect, you know, you can see that clearly I'm getting blocked, right? So let us restart. But funny enough, even though my service has been shut down, right? So system control has a lot of services. So for me, listing every single service is really hard. But let us do a couple things. Let's exit. And let me take a look at my settings for a second. So I'm just looking at it from a UI perspective just for a second. Displays. I may have something on. On. Remote login is on. That's okay. I like remote login. Bluetooth, that's for sharing. Mousepad, users, default applications, photos. Do I even have that application? Just give me a second here, guys. I'm gonna go crazy. Software. Common ones. Sorry, because these come with a bunch, right? So I don't see anything that's gonna. I don't see anything that off the top is sharing anything. Files, log, screenshot, terminal. Interesting. Port 22 seems like to not want to close. And even though I say close port 22, it doesn't really matter what I want. It looks like, but I'm surprised that the VS FTPD service is still running. So some C2Bell. Let's look at I want to look at the so this is an interactive window that gives you all the services. So sys service, virtual block, boot mount, there's cron D, fprint D, so it's print service. So you can search through this. These are all the different services. I was hoping not to do this, but network manager wait online service. I want to see that VS FTPD service is not running, because this will show us all the services that are running here. These are different services. Systemd, journaled, SSH, DNF, systemd. That's neat. Yeah, so I don't even see it running. Maybe just cached. It's a cache connection. I don't know. I wonder if we were to restart our system, would it stop the server? Let's try that. Let's go and restart our system, because it doesn't even show that it's there, right? So, and sometimes, you know, I find that that's the thing, right? So power off, restart. Go back. Anyone else have success shutting things down? So it's important to know how to do both. The reality is, okay? So we don't want to know how to enable stuff and then not know how to disable stuff afterwards. That would be not great. So that's why I'm showing it to you. And we're rebooting, and I want to try and connect with my lovely thing on port 22, my Filezilla. Hopefully it'll bounce. All right, so we rebooted. Let's try port 22 just without logging in. So quick connect. Yeah, it still lets me. I love it. Set it up and it's good for gold, right? Yeah, I think it's something else that's been running. There's another service that's built in that I don't have connection to. I wonder if I did this thing same thing with Ubuntu, that if it would do the same thing on a clean server. The other way to test this to see if this works is to do it on my other version of Ubuntu. Sorry, for Fedora. So let me just shut this down. And guys, I do this kind of stuff. I sit there and go like, wait, how come it's running like this? Like, what's happening? And to make sure that we're able to connect again, I'll do whatever I have to do to shut it down, right? And I'll even Google it. I'll say like, the FTP Sftp service not shutting down. So I'll say like, shut down Ftp service Fedora. Right? And let's see if I've done anything different. It's a subsystem. Oh, right. Okay, that's just dumb. Because it shares SSH. Oh man. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, of course it would work. So we have to stop SFTP, right? So I wonder if the Sftp server is running. But that shows us this. So I wonder if that's the way to do it. Sftp itables status. Yeah, that's something we can try too. Let's try this. Let's try and see if we've got what the status is of our VSTP server. When we bring it back up. So it's shutting down. It's taking its time shutting down right now. Wonderful. Let's bring up our other server. Remember I had that backup? Backup has less stuff installed. And this is where I'm going to install our web server on Thursday, right? So yeah, cancel that. This is my old backup. This is before I installed any of that stuff we did. And I kind of like to use this because then I know for sure it's clean. I haven't installed a lot of the other stuff. And I can test between the two servers. And it's a good learning experience too when you do this kind of stuff, right? All right, so again, same server, but a backup. The original one that I have, that I kind of made. And one day when it launches, then we'll test it out. One thing to always check is what the IP address is of the server, or the workstation here. Sometimes what happens is you make some assumptions that like it's 192.168.2.60 because that's what the other one was, but it may not be that. It may be something else, right? So let's check that when we log in. We'll check. Okay. Hopefully you guys are doing something similar to me. And again, part of it is because what we want to do, here we go, do some testing, right? Again, we're not doing security, high-end security here. We're just like literally opening and closing a port. So it shouldn't be like crazy difficult to do, but I want to make sure that we're on the same page. Again, will I have something that I asked you about opening and closing ports? Remember, this is the last week that we're doing any kind of Linux. next week we're moving away from Linux and we're talking about Python. So, all right, so here we are with another server I'm in, and the first thing I'm going to do, like I did before, is ifconfig. The first thing once this thing comes up, and you can see I got less resources allocated to this. Ifconfig. We look up. It looks like, look, we've got a new IP address, 91. This is good. I like that. So that's a really good kind of information. So 192.168.2.91. Let's bring up Filezilla, and let's see if we can get in there. 91 with the same credentials and on port 22. I haven't enabled an FTP server here, so let's see what happens when we try. So abort, and we'll try in there, and maybe it's something that's built in, and wrong. That's good. That's what I want to see. So 91, and let's see if we can SSH in here even. So let's see if we can, if even SSH is enabled. So again, we'll bring up our command prompt, and we'll SSH in there. Say tom at 192.168.2.91. Connection refused. So even SSH is turned off, right? And that's what I'm telling you. There's something that was turned on before, right, that allowed me to set this up in the first place. And I bet you, if I go over to where it says remote login in the UI, so if I go to the UI, so let's go to, sorry, we'll go to settings. Again, you see the speed is much reduced, right? So sharing, and notice remote login is off. I want to turn sharing on, but I want to turn only remote login on. So it says, look what it says, SSH Linux local. So once I turn this on, can I now SSH? Yes. And now you can see that I am in. So that works. Okay, now can I use that as a hole to tunnel in with my FTP server? Always trust the host, blah, 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 la, 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 and hello. That's your backdoor. So even though we don't have an VS FTP server, it allows me in through SSH, and that was what's causing my issue. So we found our hole, SSH, and it was right through this command line. So if we turn that off, we should be fine. All right, so let's just get out of this, and we will turn it off. Now, exit here. We can turn this off. Sharing is off on this thing, and that should secure this one back up. I'm gonna come back to this again. I'm using this as a, like I said, as a test bed, and I will power off this one and go back to the other one and fix it. So power off. So this is so to me, this is what I do, guys. I have like multiple servers. I take a look at one, take a look at the other. I made a state change in one. I didn't change the other one. And then I can compare the two, and there's good learnings from that. And I'm like, wait, if I turn on that, sharing, I open myself up to, kind of an FTP kind of connection through secure FTP. Now, it's not a bad connection necessarily, but if I wanted to shut it down completely, because I have enabled it, the local service and the UI, it overrode some of the stuff that I did on the desktop, in the command line. So that's why I was having all those issues. Right, because I'm using SSH, and the reason why I figured this out is because of this. When I looked at this, I was like, wait, SSH? What? Of course, SSH uses the same port, 22, and that's why I was able to get in. Okay, so we're going to put it back now. We're going to restart. All right, so here we are. I want to start my Fedora Linux one more time and get this done. So we've done it a couple of ways. You can see that this server is a little beefier than the other one, right? Because I put like more RAM, more CPU power, all that kind of stuff, in order for me to make it more peppy. And it's not terrible. Like the response I'm getting is pretty good, right, from this one. And we're going to test it the same way. I'm going to pull up Filezilla, right? So let's pull up Filezilla. Filezilla. There it is, Filezilla. And we know this is 60, so we're going to connect through 60 in a second. When this loads up in a second. So now we know that it's active, so let's just do that. So we'll say 192.168.2.60. Username is Tom. By the way, one thing I have to remind you, it has a history of connections. So if I go to this one, then and it'll try and connect through port 22. See? So we're good to go. And if I log in, so that's another really good thing about Filezilla. You don't have to remember all your credentials. It's right in here. You can actually go through here and remember. If you're uploading to a regular server, let's say you're working on a website or something like that, you do that. Right? You don't want to remember all or put in the credentials every single time, unless you're really highly security conscious and you're worried about someone else using Filezilla on your system. Then you wouldn't want to do that. Okay, so let's go to this. And here we are. And you can see that I've done everything correctly. But what I want to do is, let's just turn off that sharing service. Let's turn off that sharing service here on the desktop. So I'm going to go back to sharing. And I'm just going to turn this off. So now that should turn off remote login, which is this on the local domain. And when I did this, then if I try to get in, so quick connect, and I did it again, it should block this port as well as Tom on port 22. That shouldn't work either. Right? So now it's blocked, and that was the issue. The issue was that remote login was closed. So let's go back and put that stuff back in. So again, one more time from the top. So I want to put it back in. I want to have access. I can't remote log in anymore, but I want to make my firewall work properly. I want to enable my Sftp. So first thing I want to do is I want to change my firewall port. So sudo firewall command, and I go again, it's add service equals to ftp -- permanent. Okay. Next, I want to sudo firewall commands, and I want to reload. Success. Good. Firewall has been adjusted. So that gives back my FTP service. Now let's see if I can just connect to this when my firewall is open. So if I go back down to here, I haven't had my service up, but if I go to port 21 and go quick connect, it's not bouncing, but it just can connect. Fatal error, network error, connection refused. Because I got nothing to do with it. Even though it's open, there's nothing here to do. So then I want to sudo system control, and what I want to do is, enable VSFTPD. VSFTPD, yep. So it creates a symlink for the service, and then what I want to do is restart it. Sudo system control restart VSFTPD. Good. Now let's try it. So if I go here and click connect, we should be able to connect into my firewall. And now, of course, it's not connecting. Did I shut something down? I restarted it, and I'm trying. Oh wait, what's my? Yes. So it is 60. 192.168.60, and I've shut down my connection. Well, it looks like when I shut that port down for SSH, so let us add SSH manually. Let's see if I can do it. So enable SSH Fedora. Just make sure I can do it through the command. I want to make sure it's how that's done, because I don't want to mess up. Yeah, they're using OpenSSH and SSHD, and I can do a status. Okay, let's do a status. So I want to do a sudo system control status of vsftpd. Okay, so this is good. So it says active and running, right? And this is a good thing. Active and running and loaded. Loaded is a good thing. Enabled. Loading and enabled SFTP. So this, theoretically then, I should be able to run on port 21 with my credentials, right? So, and what I want to do is, maybe what I want to try is to connect just like it did. I'll report the connection and try again. Yeah, so it's being blocked by something else now. Firewall for sure. So the next part is to enable SSH. So let's try status SSHD. So we'll say, because I know pretty much SSH is enabled, as sudo system control status SSHD. So it says it's loaded, but it's disabled. There we go. So this is what I want to show. It's loaded, inactive, dead, inactive, dead, and there's no process compared to this one. And you can see that OpenSSH has been already kind of established here on port 22. And what I want to do is do the exact same thing that we did before. So let's do it by command line this time. So we'll say sudo system control, and we're going to say enable SSHD, D for daemon, SSH for the service. Okay, so we create a symlink, sudo system control, and then we'll restart SSHD. Cool. Now we'll do a sudo system control status SSHD. Now this is good. See, now it's running. Now this should make a difference with this. Let's try this out and see if that works on port 22. I think I may have to enable the firewall again. Oh no, that worked. That was right through the firewall. Look at that. I think I shut the firewall down for port 22, or maybe I removed port 21. I think I may have done that. Remove port. Yeah, let's try that again. So sudo firewall commands add dash add port equals to 21, and then slash TCP. Success. And then we'll do the same thing, firewall. Actually, I don't have to do that. I know that that's the case. I need to reload the firewall. Sudo firewall command dash reload. Cool, success. So let's see now if I can access it through port 21. 22 worked, but what about 21? 21 is not liking me connecting at all. So that's weird. So sudo, just want to curious. So it's system control. See, I messed it up now. Status vsftpd. .8 vendor disabled. That's weird. Wonder if I wiped both ports out. I can't remember if I did, guys. So sorry. Let's put TCP and UDP. I don't think you need to. I don't think one exists without the other one, but you know what? Success. And let's do the same thing with enable disable on this so we did the firewall first, and then we're going to enable disable on the Sftp system. So first I'm going to restart the Sftpd system, restart Sftpd. Okay. I love it. I shut it down, and it shut down for good. Anyways, oh wait, that's why. Because I'm using FTP, and I need to use Sftp. Yeah, FTP. So I was doing the wrong thing up here. So it was working the whole time. I just had the wrong thing up here. Instead of FTP, it had Sftp. So now both are working. Okay, cool. I did that all through command line. And we should also be able to SSH in there. So if I go through command SSH 192 or tom at, what you should do, tom at 192.168.2.60, then we should be able to SSH in now, where before we couldn't. So that's all good. All right, so that's SSH and FTP, guys. I think it's those are the two services. We talked about running a service. We talked about the firewall and the firewall command. I think these are, these are good commands to know. Firewall command and the system control command. System control can do all kinds of stuff, and I talked about this before, where I want to connect to a web server, right? So remember we did this with the web server. And I kind of said, well, what if I wanted to connect with my web server, 2.60, right? But if I want to look at, and this is what we'll do on Thursday, if I want to look at port 3000, how does that work? Is there a service running? And right now there isn't. But what I want to do is inside of on my service, and I can make the service run. I can go to, this is what we're going to do on Thursday, which is going to be of use to you. I'm going to go to Documents, and inside workspace 3 I have installed a little server, right, using npm. So what I can do is I can do something called nodemon, and nodemon will run on port 3000. That's what this will do. And then over here, if I refresh on the Windows side, I'm good. So what is Express and an Express server? That we can do, we can install that right now. So let's do that. Let's prep for next week, next day I mean, for Thursday. And we'll go from there. So let's stop this. So what I'd like you to do, this next part now. So we've done SSH, we've done FTP. I've shown you how to stop the server, start the firewall, stop the firewall. Those are all good things. And now what I want to do is I want to set up, remember we have npm, so you should be able to have node. If I go -- version, you should be able to see an npm version of 6 point something and higher. Also node -- version, you should be able to do this as well. 14.4.0 is what my version is. And what I want to do is let's make another workspace in the documents file. I'm going to make a workspace called let's call it workspace 0. So mkdir, make directory workspace 0. There it is, workspace 0. I want to go into workspace 0. Here I am. And to prepare for what we're going to do on Thursday, I want to download and install something called Express Generator. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is we're going to say npm install express-generator -g for global. Okay, now you guys have npm. If I'm not sure, I don't remember incorrectly, we set it up together, yeah? So you should be able to get this going right now. Let's try this out, guys. So again, npm install express-generator -g. Thank you. And if I press enter, even if you have it before, it's going to download it again. Now notice how it says no, it's not going to do it. You need to run it as an administrator, because any npm commands by default are going to be run as admin, and now it'll run. So that's the Express generator. And what I can do is once I have the Express generator downloaded, again, all I did was this command, sudo npm install express-generator. Express is middleware. It's the middle between Node.js, which is the backend server, and your web server. It's kind of like does all the routing for you. Okay, that's what it does. So now that I've installed this, I can simply do express. Okay, and if I type the keyword express in there, and then with a -e option, I can also decide, and if I just press enter, then what it's going to do is it's instantly created a little site for me, instantly. This is the command, express -e. So then, if I want to see this, I want to make it work, right? Let's look at this with code. So we'll say, I want to open up this up with code. So we'll just go code. So VS Code should launch. Thomas the professor. I remember that example from last week. And then I'll open up that new workspace, open workspace, and I want to look at workspace 0. That's what I want to see here, and press open. There. Workspace 0, open, right? This one. But is it workspace? Sorry. Open folder is what I wanted. Workspace 0, not workspace. There. And then what this is going to do is workspace 0 is going to pull up these files, and this is my this right here is my root of my server. So I have my public files here, roots here, views, and an app.js file. Now for you guys, the one thing that's missing is the node modules folder. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the command or control backtick. Control backtick will bring up the integrated terminal in Visual Studio Code, and we can just type in npm install. You can actually do that here, or you can do it here. It doesn't really matter where you do it. Let's do it here first. npm install. It's going to kind of fetch out, grab all the files that I want, and install them locally on my system. Right, so notice now I have a node modules folder. Okay. Once I've got this node modules folder, then what I want to download is something called nodemon. So again, sudo. I can do this here in and right in Visual Studio Code. npm install nodemon -g, because I want to use this as a global command. Right, and press enter. And this is going to go out, fetch nodemon, and install it locally on my system again. This is like in the global space. So I can use nodemon anywhere. What nodemon does is a Node.js monitor. And what it allowed me to do is run my server on port 3000, or whatever port I specify. Here it's specified as port 3000. And now, if I go here, let's modify a view to show you. If I go to views, and if I go to my index.ejs file, and we'll talk about this in the other course I'll do with you, it says welcome to, and then express. We'll just change this title right here inside the index.ejs, so it says welcome to, and then it'll say our course name. So COMP301, and then Linux operating systems. So you can see that this is a change. If I press save here, what it's going to do is, this doesn't reload, but I can reload the server by using rs. And what this does is it reloads the server. And the server always has to reload, just like we would normally reload FTP or SSH if we made a change. Here we're making a change to the web server, and we'd have to reload it. So now to test this outside of this environment and in my Windows machine, I'm in my Windows machine now, if I was to refresh, we should see, hey, welcome to COMP301 Linux operating systems. So this is what we want to get to. Now, if you don't see this right now and you see a bounce, that's okay, because we're going to set up Nginx next day. Okay? Okay, so any questions around this? I'm going to stop for today. I'm not going to kill you guys more with this kind of stuff. I know it is a lot. to go through, especially if you haven't had a chance to download and install Node.js. Remember, the prerequisites to this one, and you're going to need to do this for next half of semester, is you need VS Code installed if you don't have it right now for whatever reason. So please get it. That's number one. Two, after you get VS Code, right, as an example, make sure you download and install Node.js like we've done before in the past, right? And there's a tutorial for that earlier this semester in one of the lectures. So please do that, okay? And once you've got that, remember that control backtick opens up my integrated terminal. And that's why I really like that about VS Code, because again, I don't have to have both of these screens up at the same time. I can have only one up. So let's say just VS Code, and I can do everything here in one place. So that's why I really like this. And it's a great working environment for us for Python. I'll also introduce you to Anaconda, which is another working environment we can use with Python as well. I think Anaconda is another really cool thing that you can use. It's got also a really nice integrated environment, and it gets you to read Python pages in a different way. And we'll talk about that again starting next week. So questions before we move on. So this is what I've asked you guys to do, and we're going to get to this by next day. Guys, that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. I don't want to kill you guys. I want you guys to work on your assignment number 2. I give you back half an hour of your time. So work. If you haven't had a chance to start assignment 2, remember it's due this week. Make sure you get her done, right? So that way you should have no problems working on assignment 2. Is there any questions? I can stick around for some time to make sure that you guys are good. I'm going to power this off right now, and then I'll take questions. I'm just going to stop our session. Can I help you with the config? Yes, I can. Give me 1 second. Let me just stop. I'll stop broadcasting. We'll go from there.